What's up, everybody? This is Ricardo Rodriguez.
And Matthew Messick.
And this is
the Profits Over Wages podcast.
Welcome to another episode of the Profits Over Wages podcast, where we do weekly interviews with highly successful business owners and entrepreneurs. We discuss life, business, and entrepreneurship to bring forward the lessons learned from success and failure, and most importantly, have fun while doing it. On episode 59 of the podcast, we sit down with Bryan Segal. He is a real estate investor, speaker, and entrepreneur, formerly an LAPD officer for over 10 years. Recently, Bryan has been traveling the country speaking at events as a keynote speaker and hosts events with Shark Tank stars Daymond John, Herjavec, Barbara Corcoran, and Cardone. In this episode, we talk about Bryan's transition from LAPD officer to real estate investor, and how along with his wife, they were able to do 100 plus flips in 1 year. Bryan also goes in depth on how to use business credit cards for investing in real estate and how action is the biggest factor between those who make it in real estate and those who don't. Enjoy the show.
So Bryan, I really want to thank you for coming in and today. You have like a fantastic story, and I'm really looking forward to hearing all of it because I've heard it in snippets.
Yeah, I'm sure you tell that to everybody you come in here. You have such a beautiful story.
Well, no, the cool thing
so fantastic.
Well, the cool thing about you is I don't want to say you were like a regular dude, but I feel like
I am a regular dude. Yes.
Yeah, but you're an everyday guy that I feel like a lot of people can relate to, going from where you were to where you are now. So the people who are not familiar with you, can you just kind of tell us a little bit who you are and what you do?
Yeah, so that'll be for everybody that's not familiar with me. I'm originally from Southern California. And that's where my wife and I grew up.
It's funny because you're wearing a California shirt right now.
I know. I got to rip. Dude, TJ Maxx on clearance, it's the best. So.
I just heard that from someone else too.
Totally.
Yeah.
TJ Maxx and Marshalls, man. Those are my jams. And so, we're originally from Southern California. And while I was out there, I worked for the Los Angeles Police Department. So I was a police officer, approximately 10 years did on the department. And my wife, she is the entrepreneur in our household. She's the one that always went for business. She actually owned 2 UPS stores. She bought her first one. She was 20 years old.
Wow.
And then
you could actually buy those?
Yeah, franchises.
I thought it was ran by the government or something.
UPS?
Yeah. I don't know. It was you could just let me go buy one. I'm gonna buy a Subway or something.
Yeah. So UPS, if you bought one,
FedEx.
Oh, weird.
Yeah, if you bought one from the ground up, it's $250,000. She negotiated the first one, which was this guy. This guy owned 4 of them, and this was the one that was failing him. So it was grossing about $80,000 a year. And I'll never forget it, man. We were sitting in the parking lot of Red Robin. We're about to go and grab dinner, and she's writing all these numbers down on a napkin and negotiating with this dude. She's 20 years old, right? And she's just hammering this guy on the phone. Your numbers are this, and I can't pay that. And, you do that. And so he's like, well, then we don't have a deal. So she's like, all right, cool. She hangs up the phone. She's freaking out. She's like, I think I just lost that deal. And I'm like, I don't know what you're saying. She's doing all this stuff, and I'm sitting in the driver's seat I'm both turned on and confused because I'm like, dude, what the hell just happened?
That's not a good combo.
I know, right? And so I'm looking at her, and I'm like, what happened? And she's like, he hung up. I don't think we have the deal. And then he called her back as we were exiting the car, getting out, and he's like, all right, we have a deal. And she bought it for, I think out the door, she got it for $89,000 or $90,000.
Nice.
And she turned that bad boy around, dude. It went from grossing 80 to in 2 years, she was grossing over $500,000.
No, what?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it was nuts. She got all these little awards and stuff. And then she bought her second one. And then when she bought her second one, she really realized what she did was when you buy one of those things, you're buying a job. They do not succeed unless you're there or you have top-tiered employees that know how to upsell, know how to close, know how to, customer service.
And a lot of them don't really care. It's just a job for them. So it's not like they're going to go above and beyond.
Dude, I'm telling you, my wife, she used to say it all the time. She's like, everybody wants a job, but nobody wants to work.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys saw, I did a couple Insta story posts the other day where I'm like, what the hell happened to customer service? It's gone. People I was at a grocery store, I was checking out, and I felt like I was offending the lady checking me out. She wouldn't make eye contact. She didn't say anything. And so I was like, hey, how's it going? And she like looks at me like disgust. And she's like, I'm
Why are you talking to me right now?
Yeah. And then I asked her, I was like, did you find everything you needed today at the store? And she's like, what? What? I was like, yeah, don't worry. I found everything I got. It's all good. Like, what the hell happened? You know what I mean? So she started out with a UPS store. She sold them both. She was 9 months pregnant with my son Mason when she sold him, and the next day she had my son Mason. She had our baby, and it was really crazy. It was a really crazy time, and I thought she was going to chill after that, but she didn't. She called me up I was at work. I got back to work because I had family leave, and I went back to work a month later. In 2 weeks, I'm in at work. She calls me and she says, "Hey, I need you to take this day off of work. We're going to go to a real estate class." And I'm like, "What?" I know nothing about real estate. We knew nothing. I knew how to open doors, and that's about it. You know what I mean? So that's how it all started, man. We went to this freaking, those real estate classes that come across and come into,
There's a guru on stage. And
got a guru and everything.
Which one did you guys go to?
So we originally went to the one with Tarek and Christina, and from Flip or Flop, and we went to that class and we learned their system.
Did they actually teach it, or did they have somebody come in?
They had somebody else come in, an instructor come in, and because they were still filming. I mean, this is 5 years ago, so Flip or Flop was still killing it. They were still married, and they were destroying. They were doing really well, and we ended up meeting them in Las Vegas. We went to an investor summit through that class. It was a private event. We met him. I always tell the story that we became best friends, which really meant I stalked him forever because, he lived probably about 30 minutes from where we were at in California. And we ended up, lo and behold, doing a couple deals together in California, and we actually became really good friends, and we do deals to this day with them. So
what kind of deals? Like flips, wholesales, everything?
Wholesales, yeah. We did a few flips in California. We've done a couple flips out here in Illinois. And I was wholesaling a couple deals to him out there in Cali as well.
What was your first deal?
First deal was 963 West H Street in Ontario, California.
So it's real when they drop the addresses.
Oh, dude,
I can tell you right now.
Dude, you can never
Every
forget
single
the first
address.
one, right?
Yeah. I can never forget any of them.
My first one's crazy.
There's a couple. I mean, I can remember the houses now. I used to be, when we were flipping a ton, I think January of 2018, we had 47 homes that they were all under construction. And we had 10 homes that were on the market for sale, and I had another 15 appointments to go lock up another couple of homes. I couldn't tell you the addresses on those bad boys. I can tell you the smell. I can tell you where it was at. But
how did that first deal go? Because I'm curious, because every person that we ever talked to is that first deal was always either the craziest or everything that could have ever gone wrong went wrong.
The first deal, it actually went pretty smooth. I do have to give it to some of these classes, the one that I went to, and the company that I'm kind of a part of now that I speak at and also kind of teach at. They have really, really good fulfillment, and so we had a mentor, and they really held our hand. So everything went pretty smooth, except for the fact that my mentor told me as we were showing him pictures and video of the house, he said, "Hey, make sure you check the swimming pool out." Okay. Now my mentor was originally, he lived in Utah, and we're in Southern California. So when he said get the pool inspected, I went out, I looked at the pool, it was blue and the water felt good, and I was like,
"It's fine."
I inspected
done.
it. Looks good to me.
Yeah, it looked great. And so everything went pretty good on the inside. We really didn't have any problems at all, except for that the contractor laid down the wrong flooring with the laminate flooring that we put in there. It was the wrong color.
Was it still nice though?
It was still nice. It worked. It was actually better than the one I picked out. But I told him, I was like, "What the hell? What happened?" And he was like,
"They do that." To be honest.
Yeah, it kind of sucked. But he ended up paying for my staging. He's like, "Look, I'll pay for the staging. It's my bad." And they had already laid down. These guys moved quick. So I saw the material there getting delivered. He sent a picture. The material was delivered, and then I show up the next day, and they have 3/4 of the home done on the flooring. And then it was the wrong flooring. So we kind of hashed it out, and he's like, "Listen, I'll pay for the staging, because I can't. You don't want me to rip all this stuff out. It's just too much money." So it was good. What ended up happening though was when we sold it and we had it under contract to sell, the home inspector came through for the bank. Everything was fine. There was a couple electrical issues, but the exterior portion of the inspection said that the swimming pool needed to be replastered and the pool equipment replaced because it was completely shot.
How much is that?
Yeah.
So it's what I call, it was a $6,500 educational tax write-off.
Oh,
It wasn't too bad.
That's not crazy.
It wasn't too bad. It wasn't crazy.
I mean, given the properties over there are probably like, that's like what, a $400,000 house?
Yeah, I think that one sold for, it was around 380 something grand.
How much would an inspection costed?
$300.
Oh, dude. It wouldn't have cost anything for the inspection. I would have probably just been able to get it done faster.
Yeah.
Because it was just a pool guy that came over, looked at it, and he was like, yeah, this plaster, you got a couple of big cracks, So we ended up making 24 grand on that deal.
Nice.
But what was cool was in the middle of that deal, we did a couple of wholesales as well for 10 grand. So all in all, a 90-day period of us coming out of that class and like getting the education and doing all this stuff, we ended up grossing or netting 44 grand on those first couple deals.
Nice.
From taking those classes and like, actually teaching some of them yourself now, like what do you think is the biggest factor that like determines those that actually take the class and succeed and those that like take the class and like never do anything?
I mean, I think there's just, it's kind of personal. Like it's on a person to person basis because fear is always a big factor, but it kind of blows my mind that somebody will pay a certain amount of money to go to the class, but then do nothing with it.
Yeah.
And I think people just realize like they overthink it, they overanalyze it. And when you realize that it's just making a few phone calls and connecting dots and how much money that actually pays, I mean, it's killer. So I think really like the fear really comes into place and people really don't make a distinct decision of that I'm going to do this.
So it's all about, whether you're taking action or not.
100%. I mean, it's all about action. Like I do live calls in my class. And I'll call up realtors and real estate attorneys and hard money lenders. We even call, I have on, because it's a 3-day class. So on the second day, I have people bring in those flyers that say, we want to buy your house. Mm-hmm. And I call those dudes. And I'm like, there's two things you're going to hear. Either they're wholesaling or they're actually buying deals.
Yeah.
Majority of them, they're wholesaling.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Like
and
90% of them.
And so like a lot of people want to know like, well, why would an investor ever tell you their numbers and like what they want to make and how much they're spending on money? I'm like, why wouldn't they? Like they want you to bring them a deal. You're going to want to run some good numbers. And so hopefully, yeah. So when it comes to taking action, like we'll make these phone calls and realtors, I'll call realtors all the time on deals and they don't answer the phone.
Yeah.
And it's like, where's the action? You know what I mean? Like I'm taking action. And so, yeah, it's just one of those things that it's really dependent upon the person and if they're willing to, I like what Grant Cardone says. It's the 3 C's. It's willing to change. Like if you want to change, you have to change. You got to have the courage to do it and you got to be committed on it.
Right.
So like if you want to change, if you want something to change, you got to change.
So after you guys took that class, you guys started working, doing deals on your own, working with Christina and Tarek, and like, how did that transition?
I had a few questions first before we were done.
Go
I just wanted to touch on that.
Say something.
Shut your mouth, because I'm not done.
Say something.
I can't hear, so it's like so I feel
yeah.
One of our headphones broke, so like.
You're the only one without headphones.
Yeah, so I feel weird, but I can talk more.
You sound weird,
I can't hear myself. When you hear yourself, you're like, oh, I'm going to talk less. But anyways, no, I feel like a lot of people have the fear. They have a lot of preconceived notions of what something's going to be or do, like before they do it. Like, oh, I don't want to do that because there's going to be this outcome. Or they think they worry about all the things that could happen. But in the reality, you're not going to know the reality unless you actually do it. And then you actually have that, those outcomes happen through experience as opposed to theory. So once you start doing it, you're like, oh, it's not so bad. Like everyone's super open. Like it's easy to get deals. You just got to go out and do the work.
Yeah, we always say if you assume, you lose.
Because the thing about cold calling, which is what most people have a fear of, when you start calling, you actually realize that like 95% of people actually don't even answer. So you're just like leaving voicemails most of the time.
Yeah, but not only that, like people I think fear it a lot of times too because they're not educated. Like they don't truly know what to say. They haven't practiced. Like I'll call people, or if I get like a wrong number call, somebody calls me, dude, I try getting a deal out of it. I'm like, oh, you know what? There's no John here, but you selling a house or something? Or is John a realtor or what's the deal?
One time I got pulled over by a cop and he was writing me a ticket and then his partner started talking. I started talking to him about real estate and stuff and he wanted to be a private lender and he gave me
there you go.
I give him my business card and he's like, yeah, let me know. I'm looking to put some money to work. So I'm just like, there's opportunity everywhere. You just have to put it out there. And,
and people don't realize that.
Yeah.
If somebody calls you and it's the wrong number, it's an opportunity.
Well, that was that whole, if you saw The Big Short, that was the whole, that character, that's how they found out because the guy called the wrong number and they talked and then they made hundreds of millions of dollars out of it.
Yep.
So it's like,
I forgot about that.
Yeah, right. And that's just a true story. Also, kind of Ricardo was about to ask before, your first few deals.
Before you cut me off.
You did on your own. At what point, or did you partner with Tara and Christine off the bat, or when did that happen? No. Was that later on?
Yeah, that happened later. That was over time of building that relationship. You know what I mean? Because we were just students, and I even tell students to this day, like people all the time in the class will be like, "So can I get your phone number and I can do deals with you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, when you're educated. Yeah. Otherwise, I'm a mentor. Otherwise, I have to spend time and effort, and I got to help you run your business, and I'm trying to run my business. Like, the majority of my business is not going out and speaking. I'm a public speaker, but I'm not a full-time public speaker. Like, I'm still in this business, and I'm not at the point, my wife and I are not at that point where we can just be like, all right, we're cool. Like, let's start mentoring people. You know what I mean? And so that took some time. We definitely had to get some deals under our pocket and, like, really learn how to build a good business. And then from there, the first couple deals that I did with Tarek and Christina were wholesales. I found a deal. I didn't want it. I couldn't handle it. And so I assigned it.
So you were an LAPD officer, and then you guys took these classes and you started doing deals. At what point did you quit your job to do it full time?
It was
because I think that's a huge question a lot of people ask or want to know. Or
yeah. So I was full time LAPD while we were trying to build this business. So I did that kind of like what the Jim Rohn said, Jim Rohn, right? Tony Robbins' guy, which is work full time on your living and part time on your fortune. But
you're 9 to 5 and you're 5 to 9.
Yeah, and so but my part time fortune superseded my full time living, and my full time living started like interfering with my part time fortune.
Yeah.
Right.
So I gave myself 5 years when we signed up for this class, and we were going all in. I knew that because I was doing it with my wife, we were going to succeed. And I said, okay, 5 years should give us, what I was trying to do was match my income every year for 5 years. And I was making about 65, 70 grand a year as a police officer in California. So I was broke. And my goal was to make that 70 grand every year for 5 years. So we would have 5 years in the bank and we can bounce. Like I could quit my job, and we knew we'd had at least 2 years that we can live good on if we completely failed. Well, the problem was at the end of 12 months, I had 4.5 times my annual income in my account.
Oh, shit.
And I was just like,
I quit.
Yeah, my wife looked at me. She's like, hey, so that house we just sold, yeah, that put us here.
Nice.
And we were like, at first, I thought something illegal happened. Like, I was like, where did all this freaking money come from? But we just put our head to the ground. And we just working, flipping, wholesaling. And so, so I went into my captain's office. I called a meeting with him it was January of 2016. And I told him, hey, man, I'm in no longer need of your services, and I need to let you go.
Yeah.
So I fired him. I quit my job. And it was crazy because I left the department January. Actually, it was February. No, January, yeah. And we moved out here in February. And we moved here.
Why Chicago?
So what's interesting is we ended up partnering while we were out in California. We started doing some deals with some pretty big heavy hitters, and they were looking to expand their business. And so I remember we were in Mexico with these guys, and it was kind of like this. It was this cool, like, private networking kind of like weekend getaway with like some big dudes and businesses and stuff. And so we went, my wife and I, and we were out in the ocean with this one guy. And I was out there with him. We were chilling on the beach and stuff. And he started, I always ask the question, like, hey, so what's the next thing? I always like to ask people, like, so what are you doing? What's the next thing? And he was like, we're looking to get into other markets. And so they were already in Arizona and California. And so when he said that, I said, okay, I want to be a part of that. Like, how much do you need? Now, these are heavy hitters, dude. Like, I mean heavy hitters. So he kind of chuckled, and he's like, we don't need your money. And I was like, don't offend me. Like, my money was worthless to these dudes.
Right.
But they said they actually needed boots on the ground. They needed somebody to go out, open up the business, build the team, run the market, everything.
And they were going to do the funding?
So they did part of the funding, but they didn't want to do all the funding because they didn't want, like, they could pay companies for that, right?
Right.
They wanted somebody that had skin in the game. And so when he said we're looking for somebody to partner with, I was like, okay, where are we going? Like, right there and then. I didn't give it any thought. This was actually still when I was a police officer. And this was like 2 months before we saw what was in the account. And he was like, well, I don't know yet. And I don't know if it'll work out, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, so I just hounded this dude for a long time. And he finally called me up. He's like, looks like Chicago's the market. And I was like, awesome. Where's Chicago? I had never been here before.
Fucking to move here in February, man.
Yeah, and then we moved in February.
From California?
From California. We moved in February. And I never knew you could.
That's the worst month.
And that's the thing, too, is I never knew you can get a brain freeze without a Slurpee. Like, just breathing down the street, my brain was, I was like, dude, it is freezing out here.
Was it polar vortex that year when you came?
No.
That was
It was around there.
That was last year.
Dude, last year was rough. Like,
Yeah, it was like 7 months of winter.
dude.
It was ridiculous. I told my wife when the vortex was coming in and we saw all the new stuff, I was like, that's it. Buy the ticket. We're out of here. And we went to Puerto Rico.
Nice. Well, what timing was that? Because that wasn't the best place.
Wasn't
to
the
go to.
winters.
Yeah.
No, it was literally 2 weeks before, or it was like a week or so before all the airports shut down when -50 came rolling through here. So we partnered up with them. We put a lot of money in on that pot, and like we came out here, and all the deals that we were buying and marketing was with both of our monies.
And what were they funding? Like, what type of funding structure did they have?
As far as like percentage,
Right. Like, what are they asking for?
It
Like,
was all cash.
yeah, it was all
You're splitting
cash.
deals.
It was all cash. We were putting at the beginning like 20-25% of our money in on every single deal, on the purchase and on the rehab.
so all in.
Yeah. And then we were leveraging a lot with, we do a lot of credit card stuff, like the credit card money movement strategies and stuff. And so like we'll get a credit card that has no interest for a year, and we'll flip like 4 houses on that thing.
Can you go more into that and kind of explain that to people who aren't familiar with it, like how that works?
Yes.
Is it personal or business or?
Business, always business. So like I don't want to deal anything in personal. I want to write a book, and I keep putting it out there in the atmosphere because I want my attorney to my tax guy to finally bend and be like, all right, let's do this. I want to write a book with my tax guy that says, stop being a human being, because as human beings, we have no benefit. We get taxed 40%. We don't make any money. And as a business, especially as a real estate investor, we can avoid all the tax.
Right.
And so,
Because then, I guess, quote unquote, regular people, you get paid, you pay taxes, and you actually get that money.
Yeah.
As an owner, you get paid, you spend it, and then you pay taxes.
right. And at the end of the year, when they say, hey, you made this much money, you can defer all that by saying, no, you can offset your taxes by depreciation, basically. So Robert Kiyosaki talks a lot about this. Grant talks a lot about this. And it's just that, dude, you want to take your money and not spend it on stupid things, but on real assets that are income producing.
Right.
And so, how did we get on that subject anyways? What was the question?
Oh, you said you're doing
using credit cards.
Oh, using
credit
credit
cards,
cards.
all in the business, yeah. Dude, when it comes to taxes, I just love it. Like, I've studied a lot about that stuff, still am, and still learning. But
I thought you were gonna say like I just check out.
No. Dude, that's like my love language,
Really?
bro. It's crazy. Yeah. So like, when it comes to the credit cards, they're always in the business name, and we use only it through the business. So there's always that paper trail at the end of the year when we file our taxes. We always do, as business owners, you file a Schedule K-1 instead of a W-2 or 1099. And so when we're filing all these taxes and stuff, money's going in and out of a business bank account through business funding and business cards. So that way we can show that, look, we show this much in the business, but we only pay this much in income. We run it through an S corporation, so we save on the taxes with the whole tax reform. So it's always business. Always business.
Let me clarify really quick. Are these the business lines that you personally guarantee but don't show up on your credit report? Or are these the corporate lines that you don't need your social to apply? They're under your EIN, and then you have and then you get the trade lines to build up that credit.
That.
The second one, all right.
B.
The better one.
The better one, yeah, because what we do, so like credit cards will give you money interest-free for a certain period of time. Most of the time, it's going to be 12 to 18 months. There's some that'll do like a 24-month. We haven't gotten a lot of those lately. But like if you can have free money, meaning you pay no interest on it, and you're using it to an investment, an asset that's going to bring money back to you. So pay the credit card off, plus put money in your pocket. Like we utilize that as much as possible. And so if you have interest-free money for 12 months and it takes, let's say, 4 months to flip a house, and you can pay either the down payment or the rehab or everything all together on that card or on a couple of cards or few cards, then that's 3 houses you're able to flip with those cards in 1 year and not pay any interest.
What did you say? Cash advances?
No. Promotional checks or convenience checks. If you do a cash advance, it spikes your interest. Yeah. It like triggers it right away. Okay. So we call the credit card companies and ask for promotional or convenience checks, which most people, when they get those checks, what do they do with them? Shred them. They just get rid of them.
Are those the same as like the balance transfer checks?
Yep.
Yeah.
Same as the balance transfer ones. And so, because you can't buy a house on a credit card unless you have a cashier's check. Right. Like you got to go to title with a cashier's check. So let's say you need to bring $5,000 to the table and you have $10,000 on a credit card. You can take a promotional check from that credit card and deposit the money into your business account. It'll fund within 24, 48 hours. Take the cashier's check from that account to title as the down payment and buy the house.
Nice.
Okay. But what I've learned and what we teach is like, you're going to take that check and not write it for $5,000. You're going to write it for like $8,000. Because during the 4 months of that house being flipped, there's a minimum payment that needs to be put on that credit card.
Yeah, and then you pay it with itself.
Absolutely. The money's there. So you just pay it. You got 4 months worth of payments. You got $3,000 in there. Your minimum payment on that bill is going to be like, what, $120?
Right. Yeah.
Like you got enough money to pay it. Yeah. And then you flip it, you cash out on that house, you get everybody paid up, including that credit card, and then you rock and roll, do it again. Rinse and repeat.
So after these 12, 18, 24 months, what type of interest rates do those go up to after the...
Some of them will go as high as like 18%.
So at that point, are you still using them, or do you not use them anymore? Because then you got to have an investment that makes more than 18% annualized for it to make sense.
Yeah, so again, we don't like to pay interest because we're already paying our hard money lenders interest. So we want to find free money. So what we'll do is we'll call the credit card companies and we'll do two things. We'll try to increase the limits on them and then decrease the interests. So like if it's at 18%, we try to get it below 10%. And if they say, no, you can't, this credit card, whatever, then we balance transfer over to another card, like another promotional card. And we'll transfer the balance if there's still a balance on that card. And then once again, we restart the clock at 12 months of interest-free money on that card.
So you just continuously use new credit cards at 0%, and then the old ones you kind of leave dormant unless they come back and offer you like a lower interest at some point?
Yeah, we either leave dormant. It's rare that we cancel a card out because that doesn't look too good on the history. So we always try to keep it there. People usually like dry heave when I tell them how many credit cards I have. And so...
How many?
52.
Yeah, my next question was...
Doesn't
this end at some point?
That's it? Like,
isn't there
really?
Isn't there like a maximum number of credit card companies out there to do this with? Or
you haven't
hit it yet?
Those credit card companies have multiple credit cards.
Yeah.
Right. You go with Capital One, they have like 5.
Chase has like 6, I think, right now. Chase Freedom, Chase Sapphire.
Have you seen what? So you have 52 out of how many exist?
Know.
Have you researched that at all?
That's a question for my wife.
Yeah.
My wife she's the CFO of the company. She handles all the financing, all the money.
When's the book coming out?
I don't know. When my tax guy decides to be like, all right, because look, I'm not a tax guy. I read the tax code and stuff, but like when he decides like, all right, let's do this. I need a good CPA.
You need someone to do it with. So when there's the liability issue, like he's the one in trouble, not you. Like,
you should just write it and be like, hey, just check it for mistakes or like.
I always like to. So Kiyosaki's tax guy just wrote a pretty good book on the taxes that I'm going through right now, and he's kind of got it. But you know, it's one of those things where it's just like people need to understand. Even if they join a network marketing company for $1,000 and they have an S corporation, they just save like $25,000 on their taxes right there.
Yeah,
right, because you get offset your W-2 from that.
So an automatic home-based business. Yeah. So like your home is your office.
Yep.
You can go from writing off a percentage of part of the house to like everything in the house, right?
Yeah. So like as a human being, as a person who owns a personal home, right, they can write off. Last that I checked was 3.75% of their interest payments. And the way the mortgages are set up is that you pay 90% up front of all interest only.
Right.
Right. So banks are getting their money. And as a person, you can write off, I think it's 3.75 of that actual interest payment on that mortgage. Whereas a business, you can write off 100% of it.
And just by paying whatever, couple $100 down for like a network marketing company, you automatically switch that tax bracket that way.
Yeah. And you save like a ridiculous amount of money. With the tax reform of 2018 that is now implemented in 2019, you're able to separate your personal salary from your total gross income. Now, let's say you make $150,000 for the year in your business, right? $50,000, let's say you're doing really good, and 50 G's is on expenses. So that's gone. That's written off as expenses. You're left with 100, okay? Before you would pay self-employment, state, and federal taxes on that $100,000. But now with that tax reform, you're able to separate your actual income. So let's say, no, this year I don't want to pay high taxes, so I only made $30,000. Well, it's a 15% tax on the $30,000 and not on the $100,000 now. So that's only a $4,500 bill. rather than a $15,000 bill.
So I'm actually part of a network marketing company, and I have a few clients like that.
That's like hit me up if you want to save money and taxes.
Someone else just explained it, so I explained it to some people, and some people get it, and some people are like, that doesn't sound right. But no, I actually have a few high income earners that make 150, 200,000 or more, and they're in highest tax bracket.
Yeah.
But just by having like a
S corp,
a home based business S corp, they can
there's
totally decrease a huge amount of their tax liability.
Well, now get this, right?
So reach out to me if you want to.
Shameless ass plug.
Shameless plug.
But get this though, right?
I'm trying to help people, man.
So you would think 30 minus 170 grand. So usually before this, you would pay state and federal on the 70. But what happened with the tax reform is they now allow you to wipe 20% right off of that 100 before you pay state and federal. So that's another 14 grand worth of savings.
Yes.
But and then there's other laws like about single family income, dual income, up to this amount of money, that amount of money. So there's more into it. But regardless, like if you don't have a business ran through an S corp, a business that has money flowing in and out of that business, like you're making money, and you aren't running it through an S corp, you're losing a lot.
What's
of
the
money.
name of the book that you were just talking about? They said the guy's got it pretty good.
Robert Kiyosaki, his tax guy. I'd have to
Is
look
it
it up.
Tom Wheelwright, or is that a different Rory McIlroy? One of those.
I can tell you right now. I have it in my little. Let me look it up for you guys real quick. But it's a really good book because it even goes deeper into like retirement accounts.
I'll link it up in the show notes for those of you that are interested.
I forget the name. A while ago and I never read it. In the meantime,
I'm gonna edit this out so it doesn't matter.
Are you?
Yeah.
Until you leave the whole episode just like.
Nah.
You don't
You
want
actually
just
go
like
through it?
dead air.
Yeah. I go through it all the time. You just say
Tax-free wealth.
Oh, you edited my Uz out?
Oh yeah.
Nice.
You actually sound professional.
I think he's just making it up. I don't think he does shit.
So it's called Achieve Tax-Free Wealth, Permanent Tax Reductions, and
Jesus.
Let's see here.
It's like the longest name ever.
Huh?
No, it's just called Tax-Free Wealth, How to Build Massive Wealth
that's a subtitle.
by Permanent Leaving Your Taxes.
Cool.
But-
I'll link it in the show notes.
Tom Wheelwright.
Well, I was right. Nice.
Nice. All right. So when you guys moved from California to Chicago, how many deals were you guys doing in California at the time?
So that first year we did 13 transactions, 13 deals, and the majority of those, I think it was like 8 flips, and the rest were wholesales. And then when we moved to Chicago, because the price points are a little bit less than California, our first year out here, we did a total of 42 transactions.
Nice.
So
all
we moved
flips?
Most of them were wholesales.
What year was this?
This was February 2016. So
yeah,
February,
not that long ago.
Yeah. So we moved in February, launched our marketing in March, and from March until December, we did 42 deals.
Where were most of your lead generation coming from? For
A
all
lot
those
of it
deals?
was South Side, South suburbs, Southwest suburbs.
No, like what marketing were you putting out there that you were able to get that many deals?
Well, we were doing like email campaigns, internet, web campaigns. We did some social media stuff. We did like a blast of everything. We did flyers. On the flyers, we targeted free and clear houses, probate houses, foreclosed houses. And then on the emails and like the website stuff, we did a lot of just like, hey, we want to buy your house cash.
Nice.
No matter the condition, no matter the look. Give us a call, no obligation, free offer, like that whole.
Where were most of these deals at?
South and Southwest suburbs.
So
You said it 3 times now.
no, like I'm just saying, like where? Is this?
Rosemont Park, Tinley Park, Princeton, like a lot of the parks. South Shore, we had a couple in Grisham.
Okay.
And then we came out a little bit further. We had a few in Oak Park, Berwyn, like all over the place.
Well, those are all pretty good. Yeah, you said you do a lot of social media because you have a pretty decent Instagram following, right?
Yeah, we've
Do you
built
market
it up
for
pretty
deals
good.
on there?
We actually have. I've gotten a couple deals on there. And when I say couple, I mean like 20. And we've done pretty good on there. But people, and it's usually from people that just see the account and like hit us up and like, hey, we see you're investing in real estate in Chicago. Do you take any deals from wholesalers? And I'm like, yes. Where do you take them? And I will say everything on like a spur of a moment, but I think you guys both know whenever you hear an investor say, I take everything everywhere, you're like, yeah, you're not doing the business.
I say it to everyone because what happens? A lot of people ask you like, "Well, give me your specific criteria,"
I don't have
and
time
they want to
for
ask you a
that.
bunch of questions. And I'm like, "This guy's never had a wholesale deal." What I say is, when you get a deal, send it to me. I go,
Yeah.
"Send me your current inventory." And
What's
then you never hear
funny is
from
that you
again.
never get an email.
And you never
Yeah.
get an email, right? Because they aren't doing it. And so like I do the same thing. I'm like, send me what you got. Send me what you got, and I'll tell you if it's a deal or not. And from there, I start refining. Like, all right, if this guy actually has something going on, now I'll spend some time and I'll tell you, look,
Yeah.
I'm looking from here to here, and these borders. This is what I want. Blah blah blah. But until then, like, It's a lot of people just fishing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I'll do it anyways because if it's like something that I don't even want to buy, I'll be like, I can help you wholesale because I have my own list and I can just send it out to them.
For sure.
What did it go up from there? Did you guys ramp up the numbers or 2017?
Yeah, so 17 we did 88, and 2018 we did just over 100.
Damn. It's a lot of fucking houses.
Yeah. I'm telling you, like, it's actually interesting, and I've only told this story to a few people, but in the winter of 2018, as melodramatic as that sounds, I went through like a really bad state of depression because I was hustling so hard and grinding. And my wife and I run a very lean machine, so it's just her and I. Mm-hmm. And then I have my partners who are in California and Arizona, and then I was the one running all the teams and everything going on. So I was managing the contractors, managing the deliveries. My wife was running all the listings and all the money and all this stuff. And my contractor started falling short. We were doing so many deals. We had like 47 total under construction. We had a bunch of houses on the market.
How many crews?
I was working with a total of 7 contractors, 7 general contractors that each could handle anywhere between 2 to 5 deals at a time. And one of them I was given a ton to. He was like, bring it, let's go. Like, he was my number one guy. And he got up to like 11 properties, and he was just falling all over the place. Man. He was losing his mind. And so we started taking some serious punches in the face with like houses not selling, houses coming up on inspection, that things weren't done right. So our numbers started decreasing as far as profit goes because we were trying to get everything done and trying to manage everything and overseeing some things. And so it just delayed closings, put it on the market longer, some more cost out of pocket for interest costs on lending and all this other stuff. So it was a good lesson learned.
Do you think you scaled too fast?
Hell yeah.
If you could do it over again, would you hire people like below you to help you manage stuff?
Because I'm just thinking of
that volume just with 2 people.
Managing deliveries and contractors for that many deals, I just shoot myself.
No,
that's
trust
too
me.
much, dude.
No, it was. And that's why I said, like, I totally went into like this huge state of depression. I remember I'd come home at night and I'd be arguing with my wife, not arguing with her, but just like yelling, like, I don't know how to do this. I'm a fraud. I'm a fake. Like, this stuff sucks. I need to be a cop again. Like, what the hell are we doing? And what I've realized is that every entrepreneur that's running a business or trying to go for something great, go through it.
Yeah.
And like, I'll never forget, like I was sitting at a table with one of my lenders, and this dude's a big player. He's got a trust company, and they do some pretty big deals, and they're based out of Nevada. And I'm sitting down at breakfast with him the other day over at the Wynn Hotel, actually, downtown Chicago. And I was telling him all this stuff that we were going through, and he was like, he belongs part of this little network of like super highly successful people. And he was like, that comes up every time we meet. One of the business guys in there always say, there are times where I feel like I'm a fraud. And
I see that.
As an entrepreneur, yeah, man, as an entrepreneur, like, it's on you. You know what I mean? And
you're the last line of defense, man.
That's it. I like what Grant says, where he says, like, to his attorney, he's like, hey, man, like, be the attorney. I'm not asking you if we can do it. I'm asking you how we can do it. He just dropped a video the other day, and he said, if we're running this business to the ground, we're doing it Grant's way. Not the attorney's way, not the CPA's way, my way.
Yeah.
Because that's it. It's on you. The minute, like, even when realtors tell me you can sell your house for this much, I'm like, great, thank you. And then I go back, I challenge that information, I look at it, and then I put my number on it. And whether that's more or less, I'm very aggressive on my pricing. So like, I've had plenty of realtors tell me, hey, this thing could sell for like, you're like totally shorting it.
Going aggressive low or aggressive?
Low.
Okay.
Low.
I thought you were trying to set price.
No. I don't try to push market. And so I've had realtors tell me, dude, you're like 20 grand under fair market value on this thing for retail. And I'm like, cool, list it.
If your numbers still work, like, you're probably going to create a bidding war anyway.
Exactly. And so I remember telling this one guy, he's like, dude, I think I listed it for like 285. He's like, this thing will sell for 320 all day. I said, then do it. But it's listed at 285. He's like, but it's a 325 or 285. And he's like, it's a 325 deal. And I said, look, man, prove me wrong. Like, right now, my numbers work at 285. If you can get 325 for it, rock and roll.
At least you don't know that the appraisal is not going to fall through.
Right.
Which always scares the crap out of me every time we do a flip. I'm like, oh, I just wish this thing appraises for that much.
Yeah, we've had that happen a couple times.
Let's get into been really successful real estate. How many total deals do you think you've done now?
Oh, man. I don't know. I'd have to
just do the math.
I'd have to count. Yeah, a little. I don't know, over 200.
But anyways, you've been really successful in real estate, but you also have like a second simultaneous budding career as like a public speaker. How did that start and progress, and where are you at with that now?
Yeah, so what happened was my wife and I were getting called from the company to be a testimonial. So like the training company would call us and be like, hey, would you like to come and like, give your testimony and stuff like that. So we said, great, yeah, we'd love to. And I found myself now spending kind of my Saturdays and stuff calling in on some of these classes and doing like a FaceTime and giving my testimonial, what was going on, all this other stuff. And it went from doing like 1 or 2 to like 6, like out of nowhere. And I started seeing it was taking like a large portion of my time. And so then what ended up happening was they asked me to come. The actual host of those big Las Vegas events, he was leaving. And he was one of the instructors I was doing a testimonial for. And so when he was leaving the company, they asked him, who would you like to replace you as the host of this event, like to come in and host this thing? And he dropped my name. He was like, Bryan Segal's your guy. He's like, he's a student, he's successful, and I guess he saw that I could speak. And so I got a call one night, and they're like, hey, Mr. Robert Shemin, he's a great dude. He actually wrote a really good book called Why is This Guy Rich? Or Why is This Idiot Rich and I'm Not? And it's funny because it's a picture of two guys on the front page of the book, and they're both him. One looks like him as a bum, and one him in a suit. Why is this idiot rich and I'm not? And so I got this call, and they're like, hey, would you like to host this Las Vegas event coming up? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. That'd be awesome. That'd be great. Got off the phone. I'm like, what the hell did I just agree to?
Have you hosted anything before?
No.
Yeah.
Did you do any public speaking before that?
I mean, as a police officer, like you do it every day, right? Like sometimes you have to speak on camera, and sometimes you're trying to de-escalate a crowd, but never like this formal education seminar, freaking hosting event type thing. So the first time I did it, I consider it a massive failure. The guys all thought I did really well. But then after they were having these events probably about 4 times a year. They now do it about 2 to 3 times a year. But there's like 300 to 500 investors that show up.
Nice. Did you know that when you said yes?
No.
How many people there are going to be?
Because when we first went, I remember it being kind of small. You know what I mean? And then as things started progressing, though, I started getting a little bit more comfortable with it, started having a little more fun with it. And then I started realizing, I was talking to Robert, who was the guy before, and I'll never forget what he told me. And I tell it to a lot of speakers now before they get up and they start speaking. I can see they're kind of nervous. Is I go and I just tell them, I'm like, listen, what you have to remember is nobody knows. Like, nobody knows what you're supposed to say, what you're not supposed to say. Nobody knows if you mess up. Like, nobody knows. Right. And so when you get up there and you start dropping it, like, don't sit there and be like, ooh, I wasn't supposed to say that. Or, oh, you know what? And by the way, I forgot to tell you. Like, nobody knows.
It's almost like improv.
It really is.
It's a performance.
Yeah.
No, it really, really is. And so it's a performance with giving good content. And so for me now, I just look at it as like I'm the clown between the acts. You know what I mean? So I'm there to entertain, keep people up, and I have a lot of fun doing it. The nerve-wracking parts is when I have to interview. The first time I started interviewing like guys like Daymond John, Robert Herjavec from Shark Tank. And then now I share the stage with Grant Cardone every now and again when he comes out. We just recently did an event in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And I just look up to the guy a lot. You know what I mean? He's like one of my dudes that I consider to be very influential in my life. So whenever I get to bring him up, him and Robert and Daymond, like those guys, those 3 guys, Tariq, all these guys, like when I started introducing these guys, it was really.
Is he as crazy as it comes across on the videos that he does?
Who he is on the videos is who he is really in person. Awesome. He's a freaking stick of dynamite, dude. So.
Well, you told me this story about how it first came about. So first you hosted, for the events, right?
Yeah.
But then how did you start hosting for these other guys, these like giant names?
Yeah, so I remember it was one of the Las Vegas, we were in Vegas at one of these events, and I get this call. So it's like a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Friday night, I get a call from one of the guys that's running the event. He says, hey, Daymond John from Shark Tank is here, and he wants to come and speak to the real estate guys, all the investors about entrepreneurship. And I said, oh my gosh, that's awesome. So when is he coming up? I'll do my introduction, I'll introduce him and all this other stuff. And they're he's like, no, you're going to interview him. And I was like, huh? He's like, yeah, he wants to do like a fireside interview type chat. And I'm like, oh, hell no. Like, I don't know how to interview people. I know how to interrogate people. You know what I mean?
It's pretty close.
Yeah. So I'm like, dude, like, no, like, just have him get up and talk. And they're like, nah, you're going to interview. And so that was the first time. And I literally interrogated him for like an hour and a half. Like, it was classic. And I guess he really enjoyed it because I then got a call to be the opening keynote speaker at an event with him and Barbara Corcoran in Brooklyn, New York.
Nice.
Like 3 weeks or 4 weeks later or something. And I was just like, what? And so I got flown out to Brooklyn, and we did this event, and I got to be on stage with Barbara Corcoran, met her, and with Daymond John again, and since then it's just ran into this whole thing where now I got to meet Robert Herjavec, and then he started speaking at these events, and now I travel with him, and we do these fireside interviews all the time, and now Grant, and so like it just keeps getting kind of bigger and bigger and bigger, and yeah, like that's really how it kind of unfolded. It came down from that one.
That's awesome.
Interview. Now it's all over the place.
First question: when you ask, do they give you questions to ask, or do you got to come up with them yourself when you do these fireside?
They give
chats?
You questions, dude.
Right, so
yeah,
you have to memorize them.
I'm sure their PR person.
Well,
use
no,
the
I'm
questions.
saying you're like, oh, I had this first one. I was super nervous. I'm like, just read off the questions.
But even then,
don't look nervous.
But even then, like, dude, you got this multi-billionaire sitting next to you, right? I've never been around billionaires. I've been around a few guys that are like millionaires. And it just got in my head that, like, dude, this dude, like, has accomplished something that, one, I would love to accomplish, but two, like, most people can't.
Didn't you say, like, when Robert Herjavec comes in, like, he flies in an hour before the event, does the event, shows up, and then flies right back out in his private jet. Just, like, he's there for, what, 3 hours?
Yeah, just about. Like,
it's
that's
like a
his
presidential
Uber.
schedule. It's like, oh, I got to be in 3 cities today.
And even Grant, like, look at Grant. Grant went from doing, maybe 2 cities to now doing 5.
In a day?
In a day. Just 1, 2, 3, 4.
It's like taking a cab around.
10X plane.
I said 10X, dude.
So when was his first interview with Daymond John? Like, how long ago was that?
This was, I think it was just last year.
So maybe you've been doing this for a year, but like right after, you're just like doing event after event after event now. It's just growing exponentially.
It's literally, so I listened to the Grant Cardone 10X rule, the book.
It's so good.
It's really good. All of his books are really good. And so it was literally from the time that I listened to that, I was just like, dude, I'm really thinking way too small here. And I realized in this industry, especially real estate, is really about relationships, not necessarily just real estate. And so what I realized is, how do I show these guys and gals, these super successful, super achievers, that I don't want to just ride a coattail. I'm not just an opportunistic person. Like, I want to add value. And so how can I add value? And what I started realizing is that they had other speakers and they had other people to host the events, but those people just weren't doing the job. They weren't understanding the bigger picture of what this event is about. And so I took it upon myself to really understand and talk to the owners and talk to the people working it and talk to Dame. Every time I had a chance to talk with Damon, I would always ask before we go up on stage, we always have some time in the green room together. I'm like, hey, listen, I have your questions here. What do you want to get across, like, from these people? Because then you might have a list of questions. Like, I always have the list of questions. However, the conversation leads those questions. And so it went from the first time that I did the interview, it was literally like, Damon, how old were you when you started your business? And like, just so robotic. To now, every time we get up there, it's very conversational. Like, they get up, they say, hey, what's up? I ask how everything's going. How's everything doing? They'll say a little something. Once they say something, I'm a very active listener, so then it just goes right in to the questions. And it's very, very conversational. Nice. And they've all kind of complimented me on that, which, I tried my best to work really hard at that to make it very flow and very easy, so it doesn't sound very scripted. And people actually, I believe people can understand more and take more from a conversation than they can from a scripted Q&A. You know what I mean? Kind of like what you're doing with me, Matt.
Well, no, I was gonna, I was gonna say, when we first started our podcast, it was very robotic and weird, and we're like, oh no, like, people are gonna hear this.
Not only that, but it's like, this is the first time I've met you. You guys have met before, but like, just interviewing a person, it's hard just interviewing someone, right? To make it seem like it's an actual conversation. Yeah. It's even harder when you haven't even met the person before. Right. So like, you still don't know like how people are. Does this person swear? Do they not swear? Is he gonna get offended if I say fuck? Like, yeah, there's like a whole different silence. But you did something really well that a lot of people don't do, is come out a little bit early, talk to them, see how they're doing, see what their language is, see where they're at, see how comfortable they are, how nervous they are,
And then you guys as interviewers, like what I've just learned is like you're in control there. Like they might be the celebrity, the star, and everything that comes in it. But there's this Greek word called the hooperitis. And the hooperitis is the guy, the servant behind the curtains that turns on the lights, rolls the curtains, plays the music, that makes that star look so good. Mm-hmm. And that's the job of the person doing the interview, like to keep this person calm and chill, very relaxed, so they can feel comfortable to say what they want to say, be who they are, come across how they are, and then, the conversation, the questions are more conversational than they are.
For sure.
Well, speaking about questions, we got some questions for you. But before we get into the questions,
Rapid fire.
I have 2 last questions for you. Okay, so now, how is your time divided between your speaking career and your real estate? Like, are you still doing both? Are they like, how do you see that going in the future?
So we're definitely still doing both. We aren't flipping as many houses as we were before. That's just because of the way the market's going right now in Illinois. We were talking earlier about what happened December of last year to now, and that it went from a seller's market to a buyer's market with federal interest rates and all this other bull crap. And so like we have houses still that we flipped and we're trying to unload and trying to sell. And I think you guys have felt this too, like houses just sitting on the market longer. There's just more inventory, more things to choose from. So we're doing a lot more wholesaling.
Same.
Except for this freaking legislation that just dropped about wholesaling, which I think you guys can do an entire podcast on.
Yeah, I was like, let's not bring that up because it's going to be another half an hour.
Yeah, for sure.
Stuff.
So we won't talk about that here now. But so now and that's the cool thing about business and stuff. Things are always changing, so you always have to adapt. So the way we've been balancing it is we've been doing a lot more wholesaling than we have been flipping. And my wife and I are now our goal was always to make a lot of money so we can buy a lot of assets, a lot of rental properties. And so my wife and I are now in that position where we're starting to move forward towards more of buying the multi-units and, cherry picking the ones that we want to do for that passive income. So when I go out and I speak at some of these events and some of the trainings, I'm out there looking at the market. So I'm running both. Like Tony Robbins, he said it best when somebody asked him, how do you do work-life balance? He says there's no such thing. But there is work-life integration, integrating the two. And so like my wife will come with me on these little speaking events and stuff like that, and she'll actually help out. She won't speak. She hates public speaking. But we go out, we'll look at deals. We'll look at deals prior to going out there and set up appointments with realtors. And so we take advantage while we're out there.
Nice.
And then we go out and we eat, and we have like a date night in another state. Like this weekend we'll be going to Spokane, Washington for an event. And then we're going to, I think we're going to like Atlanta, Georgia, I think next weekend. Not this weekend, but next weekend.
They should come with you to Springfield?
No. She was like, you can enjoy that.
She's like, I'm okay with that.
I was like, come on, babe, we're at the Crown Plaza. There's a Red Lobster next door to us.
There. I visited my brother down there, and there's like one cool coffee shop to go to, and that's like it.
The downtown Springfield area, we actually had a pretty nice dinner at, not my wife and I, but the guys that I was with. We went out to dinner at this little restaurant down there. That's pretty good. But other than that,
there's like not much to do there.
That's a good segue because my last question was, so you and your wife, I like how we started this episode. I said, tell me about your background. And you talked about her for the first 5 minutes and her background. And I know that you guys have like shared social media accounts and you're like, you really kind of do everything together and you're very supportive of one another, which, I haven't really seen that with too many of our guests. Do you want to go into that a little bit about how it is to work with your wife and that you're both doing the business together as opposed to like, she having her own career separately and you having your own and, all of that.
Well, without like losing my shiz and like crying my eyes out, you know what I mean? Because that's where it is with that. But like, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for her. This is all her. Like, she gets all the praises. She just created a monster out of me. Like, I think within myself, I've always, when I used to listen to Tony and Jim and Les Brown and Ziggs and all this stuff, I remember commuting back and forth to work as a police officer, listening to those guys, trying to better myself. And I remember saying, like, I want to do that one day. Like, to be able to say something that influences another person to do good. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, to have that power. Jim used to say, the word is the pin, like a little pin needle, but the emotion behind that word is a freaking wrought iron bar that'll go right through your heart. And so he used to, to be able to say something or have a story in such a way that can help others to influence them to do good is what I always wanted to do. I just never had that platform. Because as a police officer, dude, nobody wants to hear what you have to say. Unfortunately,
you giving me a ticket? I was not speeding, man. Come on.
I did my best. I was like, listen, you're a great person, okay? So this is really this business and where we are today and what we have and what we've accomplished. all the praises to my wife. It really is her. And so, and I tell everybody, I'm like, dude, she is like the leader in our family. You know what I mean? And like, if it wasn't for her, I mean it, like I'd still be a cop. And so we do the business together. I'm more, I think, dependent upon her than she is on me. Like she would run this thing with or without me. And I've told her plenty of times, and I've told some of our friends, I'm like, I'm dead if this girl leaves me. Because like, I don't even have like the bank account information. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know the codes. I don't know
the login.
Dude, she
You'd be
like,
homeless, like,
I'm
any
serious.
day if
Like,
she
she'll
wants.
send me a screenshot of the bank account, and she'll be like, "This is your allowance," and I'm like, "Okay, thanks, babe." So literally, like, I praise my wife like no other. There's nobody else out there for me than her. Like, she really has. She's been the influencer in my life that has made me who I am today.
That's awesome. You should write a book about that. Like,
You should
then
do a
get the
podcast
full
together.
audience. I feel a lot of people buy that.
Yeah, for sure. I just got to get her to talk more.
Podcasting is so easy. You
know.
can just talk back and forth.
And this was really interesting too. If you guys ever get a chance to hear her, talk to her, meet her, whatever, if you start talking business with her. So I'm very analytical when it comes to behavior. Mm-hmm. I like to analyze people's human behavior and stuff like that. And so I always remember that when my wife starts talking business, like she's in it. Like
Just goes off.
She's in it. Yeah. What I realized is that her voice actually goes a tone lower the minute she starts talking business.
Uh-huh.
It is the craziest thing to see and witness. Like, anytime somebody starts talking about business, money, whatever, like, you can just see the focus, like, get turned on. And, like, yeah, she just goes for it. So she's really
like I do
awesome.
that.
Really awesome.
All right, we're going to ask you some rapid fire questions.
Jelly.
Brian,
Bananas.
You got Bryan.
if you had one piece of advice to someone just starting, if you had one piece of advice to someone just starting out, what would it be?
Just starting out.
Yeah.
I would probably give the same advice that Grant gives, the 3 C's: change, courage, commitment. Like, for things to change, you have to change. For things to get better, you have to get better. So you have to change. You have to have the courage to do it. And that's a muscle that you can build over time. And you have to be absolutely committed to it.
Cool. Do you have a morning routine?
Yeah, I actually get up at about 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, every morning. And Les Brown, he actually gave a study on this, that the first 20 minutes of you waking up, you're in a subconscious state. So I always have a video, a YouTube video or an audiobook or something ready to go when I wake up. So once I wake up, put my AirPods in, press play.
That's a good idea.
And as I'm getting ready to go to the gym's the first thing I do every morning. But as I'm getting ready,
I can tell that you're
I'm
jacked.
listening
Yeah.
to- it's a small shirt.
It's a medium.
The gym's really been like, it's been my church away from church. So like I go there, it gets all my stress out, keeps me level-headed, and I'm ready for the rest of the day. So yeah, so first thing in the morning, wake up, listen to something good that's feeding my brain something good, head to the gym, work out, come home, feed my kids, get them ready for school.
Nice.
To what do you attribute your success?
My wife. I think we kind of
And you
went
were
over
gonna
that.
say Yeah.
What habits help make you successful?
I would say the daily feeding the brain something good. I always read my goals, and I keep a clear vision of what I want in the future.
What living or dead person other than family members do you most admire?
My grandfather, he's dead. He passed away.
I'm sorry to hear that, but the question was other than family members.
My grandfather, yeah, he passed.
All right,
Other
I'll
than
give
family,
you
okay.
that
So other than family members, it'd have to be Jim Rohn, Rohn, Jim Rohn. He was a huge, like, I've listened to all his stuff several times over, so it's got to be him.
How do you stay motivated?
By having that clear vision of the future. I call it sometimes in my classes, as a police officer, you have a set vacation time. And I don't know if you guys ever been there before, where you have a vacation planned and it's coming up. No matter, like 2 days before that vacation, no matter what comes at you, reports on the desk, you're like, I don't care, man, I'm going on vacation. You know what I mean? So It's called vacation mode, is what I've called it. Because even in the police department, when you saw an officer that wasn't doing anything and like you couldn't bother him, everybody knew he was on VC mode, him or her. And so a clear vision of my future, of what it is I am trying to accomplish, keeps me going. Like, what was it? What was actually the verbiage on that question?
How do you stay motivated?
That is how I stay motivated. A clear vision of what it is I'm looking to do or accomplish in the future.
If you got the chance to start over, what would you do differently?
Start earlier.
It's a good one.
I probably wouldn't have been a police officer, although I absolutely loved it. I would have gone straight into real estate investing.
why do you do what you do and what gets you through the tough times?
My family. Why I do what I do is because I got these 2 beautiful children I got to feed every day. And I love it when I come home and they know that daddy's done a good job. Like my family, my wife, my kids, I don't want to let them down. That's what gets me through.
Do you have a favorite failure? Is there one that set you up for future success?
Yeah, my favorite failure was when my wife first came to me and told me she wants to run a business. We were working at Bank of America. So during the background process of me going to the police department, I was a Spanish teller at Bank of America. Sí puedo hablar español.
You speak Spanish?
¿Cómo no? And so,
Could do a whole Spanish
like
episode.
fluente español, like puedo hablar.
See, Matt's half Mexican. If he only spoke Spanish, we could do this episode in Spanish, but he doesn't.
But then only half the listeners would know what we're saying.
No, I'm sorry.
So I got this job at Bank of America as a Spanish teller. She was working there as a personal banker. Fell in love with her right away. She came to me one day, and this was after like a couple months that we were working there, and we started dating and all this other stuff. She said, "I'm going to go own my own business. I'm tired of working for the man. I want to own my own business." The failure that I regret the most is the fact that when she said that, I told her, "Babe, you don't even have a college education. How the hell are you going to own a business?"
Just like, watch me.
And she did.
Yeah.
And so she got her first business like maybe less than a year after she told me that. And so it was literally from that point on, I've said to myself, I will never doubt my wife again.
But, I mean, you motivated her too, maybe, you know. So that
Everybody that said no to her, motivated the hell out of her. When you meet her, you'll realize you can't really tell her anything. Like the minute she makes up her mind on something, like just get out of the way. But like even when I told my friends that we were getting into real estate, everybody asked, like my personal friends that knew me, they were like, "Does Maira know?" Like when I was like, "Dude, I'm in real estate."
Did she give you permission?
Yeah, like they were like, "Dude, does Maira know what you're doing?" I was like, "It was her idea,"
okay.
They all responded the same. They all said, "Well, looks like I'm talking to a millionaire." Then they all knew that we were going to be super successful because Maira was on board.
But they're like, if it was just you by yourself.
Yeah, I'm screwed. They're like, just be a cop, dude. Like, slow down.
Where can people find you if they want to get a hold of you?
Instagram. I run my own Instagram account. So that is mine and my wife's deal. It's at Bry, B-R-Y, A-N-D-M-A-I. So at Bryan Mai.
I'll link it in the show notes.
Yep.
All right, man. Thank you for doing this. Really appreciate you giving us your time.
Yeah, it was
Thank
awesome.
you. Appreciate it, guys.
Till next time, guys.
Deuces.
And that's it for another episode of the podcast. Hope you enjoyed it. One last thing before you head off though. Please don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave us your thoughts on iTunes. It would really mean a lot and help us reach more people. You can also find us on Facebook at Profits Over Wages Podcast, as well as on Instagram and YouTube. Until next time.